Imagine a time long ago, in a world where the boundaries between the seen and unseen were thinner than they are today. A time when the earth itself seemed alive with the presence of spirits and the breath of angels. It was in this mysterious era that Prophet Solomon, known in Arabic as Sulaiman, rose to power. His story is not merely that of a king or ruler, but of a man chosen by Allah to carry an immense responsibility, to rule with justice, wisdom, and the guidance of the divine. Solomon was the son of Prophet Dawood, inheriting not only a kingdom, but also a legacy of faith and leadership. From his youth, it was clear that Solomon was special. His heart was pure, filled with a deep love for Allah and a yearning to serve humanity with fairness and compassion. When his time came to rule, Allah granted him gifts that no other human possessed. These gifts were signs of the Almighty's favor, blessings that would make his reign legendary. Unlike other kings, Solomon's power was not measured by armies or riches alone. He had a unique connection with the natural and supernatural worlds. The Quran tells us that Allah gave Solomon control over the jinn, mysterious creatures made from smokeless fire, capable of incredible feats beyond human ability. These beings, some obedient and some rebellious, were bound to serve Solomon's will. With their help, he could build magnificent palaces, govern vast lands, and keep peace in ways that defied ordinary explanation. But Solomon's gift went beyond commanding. The jinn, he could understand the language of birds and animals, a miracle that opened his eyes to the hidden beauty and wisdom within creation. The ants communicated with him to avoid his footsteps, and the winds carried his messages across deserts and seas. Imagine the wonder of such a king, one who could listen to the tiny voices of creatures and use their knowledge to govern wisely. Yet, amid this extraordinary power, Solomon was humble. His heart was not lifted by pride or arrogance. Instead, it was grounded in gratitude to Allah. He understood that his abilities were a test, a trust placed in his hands to be used with care and mercy. He prayed constantly for guidance, asking Allah to help him lead justly and to remain on the path of righteousness. The kingdom under Solomon's rule was one of prosperity and peace. His people flourished because justice was upheld without bias. The poor found protection, the weak found support, and the powerful were held accountable. It was a realm where faith and governance were intertwined, where laws were not just written on paper but lived in the hearts of all. Solomon's wisdom was renowned far and wide. Leaders from distant lands traveled to his court seeking advice. Scholars came to learn from his judgments, and even the natural world seemed to rejoice under his command. The Quran shares stories of Solomon's judgments that reveal his profound understanding of fairness and insight, but with such greatness, challenges were inevitable. For as light attracts shadows, Solomon's reign drew the attention of forces that sought to disrupt the harmony. Among the greatest threats was magic, a power that many feared and misunderstood. Sorcery and witchcraft, often wrapped in mystery and fear, began to rise in the lands surrounding Solomon's kingdom. Magic, in many forms, was used to deceive, manipulate, and harm. Sorcerers sought to challenge the divine order by twisting hidden forces to their will. They cast spells to create illusions, control minds, and even try to overthrow rulers. This dark art was a test not only for Solomon, but for all who believed in the power of faith over trickery. As reports of magic's growing influence reached Solomon, he knew that this threat could not be ignored. The fragile peace of his kingdom and the faith of his people were at risk. But Solomon did not rely on weapons or armies alone. Instead, he turned to what had always been his strength, his unwavering trust in Allah and the divine guidance he received. Allah had not granted Solomon his gifts without purpose. The power over jinn, the wisdom to judge, and the humility to serve were all tools in a larger divine plan. Solomon was to be a protector, not just of lands and people, but of the spiritual integrity of his time. Solomon's response to magic was rooted deeply in faith. He understood that magic, when used to defy Allah's will, could never stand against the true power of the divine. To confront this challenge, Solomon relied on the gifts Allah had given him, including a special sign of authority, a ring said to hold immense spiritual power. This ring symbolized Allah's favor and served as a means through which Solomon could command the jinn and break the spells cast by magicians. With this divine assistance, Solomon faced the dark arts head-on. Stories passed down tell of how he dismantled illusions and freed people from enchantments. His kingdom became a fortress where faith triumphed over deceit. The jinn, obedient to his command, worked tirelessly to maintain peace and order, undoing the harm caused by sorcery. But beyond the miracles and power, Solomon's story is one of profound spiritual insight. It reminds us that true strength lies not in magic or force, but in faith and submission to Allah's will. Magic may create illusions and cause fear, but it is powerless against the light of divine guidance. As we reflect on Solomon's reign, we see a man who balanced extraordinary power with deep humility. His story encourages believers to trust in Allah during times of trial, and to remember that no worldly power can surpass the Creator's will. This first chapter of Solomon's journey sets the stage for the greater struggle ahead. A struggle not just against magic, but against all that threatens faith and justice. It invites us to look beyond the surface and understand that divine power, guided by faith, is the ultimate force in the universe. As the sun set over the sprawling kingdom of Prophet Solomon, its golden rays painting the ancient stones with a warm glow, a darker force was quietly gathering beyond the horizon. Magic, mysterious, powerful, and feared, was beginning to spread its roots into the hearts and minds of men. What had once been whispered secrets in dark corners was becoming a tangible threat, a challenge to the divine order that Solomon embodied. To understand the gravity of this threat, we must first grasp what magic represented in that era and within Islamic tradition. Magic, or sihr as it is called in Arabic, is often portrayed as an attempt to manipulate the unseen forces of the universe for personal gain, control, or harm. It is a force that treads the dangerous line between the natural and supernatural, the lawful and the forbidden. The Quran clearly warns against magic and sorcery, condemning them as acts that mislead people and divert them from the path of Allah. In Surah Al-Baqarah 202, the story of Harut and Marut is mentioned, two angels sent as a test, teaching magic but warning humanity not to misuse it. Magic, in this sense, was a trial, a temptation with devastating consequences for those who chose to follow its dark allure. During Solomon's reign, the knowledge of magic was not confined to myths or isolated practitioners. It was a real and present danger, practiced by men who sought to undermine faith and wield power through deception. Sorcerers and magicians began to use spells, incantations, and rituals to create illusions that could blind the eyes, cloud the mind, and enslave the will. The people of the time were caught in a difficult balance. Some were fascinated by magic's promise of power and mystery, drawn in by its seductive charm. Others were terrified, aware of its destructive potential, but feeling powerless against it. This fear and fascination created fertile ground for a magic to grow and spread. Reports began to reach Solomon's court of strange happenings, inexplicable illnesses, sudden disasters, and bizarre events that defied ordinary explanation. Crops failed overnight, animals behaved erratically, and people fell under strange influences that robbed them of their reason. Whispers of magic's hand in these events stirred unrest and anxiety. This threat was more than just a political or social problem. It was a spiritual crisis. Magic's insidious nature aimed to sever the connection between humans and their creator, to replace trust in Allah with fear of unseen forces controlled by men. It was a challenge to the very foundation of faith that Solomon had sworn to protect. In response, Solomon's kingdom had to grapple with a question that echoes through the ages. How can one confront a power that is invisible, deceptive, and rooted in the unseen? The answer lay not in brute force, but in the strength of faith and the divine wisdom granted to Solomon. Solomon understood that magic, while powerful, had limits. It was a force granted or permitted by Allah as a test, not a source of independent power. It could only affect those who allowed themselves to be deceived. This truth was a beacon in the darkness, guiding Solomon's approach to the growing threat. Historical records and Islamic teachings speak of many magicians who tried to challenge Solomon's authority. Some sought to use magic to overthrow his rule, while others aimed to corrupt the people's hearts. Yet none could match the divine power that flowed through Solomon, nor the unwavering faith that anchored him. One of the most famous stories illustrating this struggle involves a powerful magician who conjured terrifying illusions to intimidate. Solomon's court. The magician's spells created visions of monstrous creatures and unnatural disasters, designed to shake the confidence of the people and make them doubt Solomon's divine favor. But Solomon, with his gift of discernment and his deep faith, saw through the illusions. He reminded his people that magic is but a trick of the eyes and ears, powerless against the truth of Allah. With the help of the jinn and the power of his magical ring, he dispelled the sorcerer's creations and restored peace. This tale is more than just a story of spectacle. It is a lesson in resilience and trust. When faced with deception and fear, Solomon's response was to turn to Allah, relying not on the might of his armies, but on the strength of his heart and soul. Throughout history, the spread of magic has often been tied to moments of uncertainty and fear. When people lose sight of their faith or feel powerless against life's challenges, the temptation to seek forbidden knowledge grows. This was true in Solomon's time and remains so today. Solomon's reign teaches us that confronting such darkness requires more than rejection. It requires illumination. Faith acts as a light that reveals the falsehoods of magic and restores hope. The power to overcome lies not in the spells themselves, but in the belief that Allah's protection is absolute. The kingdom also saw the role of education and awareness in combating magic. Solomon encouraged learning and understanding of the spiritual dangers of magic, warning his people about the cost of dabbling in such practices. His wisdom was a shield that helped his subjects resist temptation and stay grounded in true faith. Magic's rise was also a test for Solomon personally. Despite his gifts and wisdom, he had to remain vigilant, humble, and reliant on Allah's guidance. This constant struggle between light and shadow shaped his character, making him not just a ruler, but a symbol of spiritual resilience. In the face of growing magic, Solomon's faith was the foundation of his strength. He prayed for protection, sought knowledge, and used his divine gifts responsibly. His example reminds us that no matter how dark the world becomes, faith can illuminate the path forward. As magic's influence spread, Solomon also realized the importance of compassion. Many who turned to sorcery did so out of desperation or ignorance. His role was not only to confront the magic, but also to guide the misguided back to the light. This balance of justice and mercy became a hallmark of Solomon's reign. While he used his power to dismantle harmful magic, he also offered chances for repentance and reform, emphasizing that true power comes from submission to Allah, not from control over hidden forces. The challenge of magic in Solomon's time was a complex struggle, one that involved battles of the heart and soul, not just the physical realm. It was a reminder that the greatest victories are won not by strength alone, but by faith, wisdom, and compassion. As we reflect on this period of Solomon's reign, we see a timeless lesson for humanity. The allure of magic, the temptation to control forces beyond our understanding, remains ever present. Yet, the story of Solomon shows us that such power is fleeting and fragile compared to the eternal strength of faith. In the chapters that follow, we will explore how Solomon used his divine gifts, especially his magical ring and command over the jinn, to protect his kingdom from magic's threats. We will see how his faith was the true source of his strength, a strength that no sorcery could overcome. Solomon's divine tools and strategies, the triumph of faith over magic. The kingdom of Prophet Solomon flourished like a radiant jewel in the ancient world. Yet beneath the splendor and peace, an invisible battle raged, one that tested not just armies or borders, but the very soul of faith itself. Magic, with its shadows and illusions, challenged the order that Solomon was divinely appointed to uphold. But Solomon was no ordinary king. Armed with divine gifts and an unshakable trust in Allah, he stood as a fortress against the darkness. Central to Solomon's power and success in overcoming the threats of magic was the profound spiritual connection he maintained with his Creator. His strength was not just in his gifts, but in the heart that wielded them, a heart devoted to Allah's will, guided by wisdom and humility. This was the foundation on which all his victories were built. 1. Of the most iconic symbols of Solomon's divine authority was a special ring, often referred to in Islamic tradition as the Seal of Solomon. This ring was not merely a piece of jewelry. It was a powerful tool granted by Allah, a symbol and instrument of divine authority. It enabled Solomon to command the jinn and control the unseen forces of nature, a gift that would prove crucial in his battles against magic and sorcery. The story of the ring carries with it layers of meaning. It represents the intimate bond between the Prophet and Allah, a tangible reminder that all power flows from the Almighty alone. Through this ring, Solomon's commands were enforced, and his kingdom was protected from harm. But Solomon's ability to command the jinn was not an act of domination but of stewardship. The jinn, beings created from smokeless fire, possessed immense strength and unique capabilities. Some jinn were benevolent, serving Solomon faithfully, while others were rebellious and posed dangers to mankind. Solomon's wisdom allowed him to distinguish between friend and foe, and to enlist the loyal jinn in defending the kingdom. With the jinn's help, Solomon accomplished remarkable feats, building palaces of unparalleled beauty, constructing bridges, and maintaining order across vast territories. When it came to countering magic, these supernatural allies were indispensable. They could detect illusions, dismantle enchantments, and confront the dark forces behind sorcery. One famous tale recounts how a group of sorcerers challenged Solomon by conjuring terrifying visions and casting spells to sway the hearts of his people. The illusions were so convincing that fear spread like wildfire. Yet Solomon remained steadfast. Through his faith and with the power granted by his ring, he commanded the jinn to reveal the truth behind the sorcerers' tricks, exposing their deceit and restoring peace. This episode highlights a critical spiritual truth. Magic, despite its frightening appearance, is ultimately powerless when confronted with divine light and faith. The fear it instills is based on illusion and ignorance. Solomon's role was to pierce through this darkness, to guide his people back to the path of truth. Another important strategy Solomon employed was the use of knowledge and discernment. He understood that magic thrived on secrecy and deception, so he encouraged transparency and education. His court became a center of learning, where people were taught about the dangers of forbidden knowledge and the importance of unwavering belief in Allah. Solomon also issued clear warnings against dabbling in magic. In his wisdom, he saw that many who turned to sorcery did so out of desperation, curiosity, or the desire for power. His approach combined justice with mercy, punishing those who caused harm while offering guidance and opportunities for repentance. Beyond these tangible strategies, Solomon's greatest weapon was his unshakable faith. He prayed constantly, seeking Allah's guidance and protection. His reliance on divine support set an example for his people, showing that true strength comes not from magical artifacts or spells, but from surrender to the Almighty's will. Solomon's story reveals that the battle against magic is not fought only in the physical realm, but also within the human heart. It is a struggle between trust in Allah and the temptation to seek power through forbidden means. By choosing faith, Solomon taught us that no darkness can prevail against the light of belief. In addition to the ring and the jinn, Solomon's control over nature itself was a crucial element in his defense against magic. The Quran mentions how Solomon could command the wind to carry his messages and his throne. This mastery over natural forces was another sign of Allah's favor and a reminder that all elements of creation obey the divine command. When sorcerers tried to use their dark arts to disrupt the natural order, Solomon's command over these forces served as a counterbalance. He could restore what was broken, calm storms stirred by enchantments, and protect the land from unnatural harm. Perhaps one of the most striking aspects of Solomon's leadership was his humility amid power. He never claimed his gifts as his own, but always attributed his successes to Allah. This humility was his shield against arrogance and a source of continuous strength. Throughout Islamic history, scholars and mystics have reflected on Solomon's example. They emphasize that his true greatness lay in recognizing his role as a servant of Allah, not merely a ruler. His story encourages believers to cultivate a heart full of gratitude, seek knowledge, and maintain trust in divine wisdom even when facing the darkest trials. The lessons from Solomon's strategies also extend to modern spiritual practice. Believers are reminded that protection from evil, including magic, comes through sincere faith, prayer, and adherence to the teachings of Islam. Magical tricks and deception may frighten the eyes, but the soul anchored in Allah's guidance remains unshaken. In closing, Solomon's confrontation with magic was not just about power struggles or political survival. It was a profound spiritual journey that revealed the nature of true authority. His divine tools, the ring, the jinn, control over nature, were extensions of a faith that transcended the visible and touched the eternal. His legacy teaches us that no matter how overwhelming the forces of darkness may seem, faith illuminated by knowledge and humility will always light the way. Solomon's story is a timeless reminder that divine power, when embraced with the heart and mind, triumphs over all illusions. Lessons and legacy. Faith's enduring triumph over darkness. The story of Prophet Solomon's encounter with magic is far more than an ancient tale of kings, jinn, and mystical rings. It is a profound spiritual journey that resonates deeply through the corridors of time, offering timeless lessons for all who seek to understand the battle between light and darkness, truth and deception, faith and fear. Solomon's reign, with its dazzling blend of divine gifts and human wisdom, presents an inspiring example of how faith rooted in the heart can overcome even the most elusive and frightening forces. As we draw the curtain on this remarkable story, it is essential to reflect on the legacy left behind, a legacy not just of miracles and power, but of humility, trust, and the enduring strength of belief. The nature of true power. At the core of Solomon's triumph lies a fundamental truth. True power does not come from magical artifacts, illusions, or supernatural abilities. These are but temporary, fragile tools that can easily be broken or outwitted. The real source of strength is the connection to the divine, the Creator who holds all things in his hands. Solomon's magical ring, his control over the jinn, and his command of nature were significant, but they were only instruments of Allah's will. Without faith, these gifts would have been hollow and vulnerable. It was Solomon's humility, his constant prayer, and his unwavering trust in Allah that transformed these tools into shields that no darkness could penetrate. This lesson is timeless. In a world where people often seek shortcuts to power, influence, or security, through technology, wealth, or even occult practices, Solomon's story reminds us that lasting strength is spiritual. It requires surrender, patience, and the recognition that human abilities are limited, but divine mercy is infinite. Faith as a shield against deception. Magic at its core is deception. It thrives on creating illusions that manipulate perception and incite fear. Whether ancient sorcerers or modern-day charlatans, those who practice magic often exploit the vulnerabilities of the human mind and heart. Solomon's victory teaches us that faith acts as a shield that reveals truth behind illusions. When the heart is anchored in belief and the mind guided by knowledge, it becomes impossible for deceit to take root. This spiritual insight is crucial in all eras, especially today, where misinformation, false promises, and psychological manipulation are widespread. By trusting in Allah's guidance and seeking wisdom, believers can discern reality from trickery, protecting themselves and their communities from harm. Solomon's example encourages constant vigilance, education, and spiritual growth as defenses against the ever-present temptation to stray from the path of truth. The importance of wisdom. And just as Solomon's story is not only about faith, but also about the responsible use of power. His reign was marked by justice, compassion, and an understanding that authority is a trust, not a privilege. When confronting magic, Solomon did not resort to cruelty or vengeance. Instead, he combined firmness with mercy. He punished those who abused magic to harm others, but also sought to educate and rehabilitate. This balance ensured social harmony and prevented fear from turning into hatred or chaos. This approach is a powerful reminder that spiritual battles are not just personal, but communal. Protecting society from harmful influences requires wisdom, empathy, and a commitment to justice. Leaders and individuals alike are called to uphold these values to maintain peace and righteousness. Spiritual resilience in the face of trials. Solomon's challenges with magic were also a test of his character. Despite his divine gifts, he remained humble and reliant on Allah. This spiritual resilience, the ability to remain steadfast and hopeful despite trials, is one of the most inspiring aspects of his legacy. Life is full of unseen battles, temptations, and difficulties that can shake faith. Solomon's example teaches that true resilience is found in prayer, reflection, and surrender to the divine plan. No matter how daunting the obstacles, believers can find strength in their connection with Allah. This resilience also calls for self-awareness. Recognizing one's limitations and seeking continuous growth keeps the heart soft and the soul alive. Solomon's humility ensured that his power never corrupted him, but instead was used for the greater good. Practical spiritual lessons for today. Although the story of Solomon and magic is ancient, its lessons are profoundly relevant today. The temptations of magic, in many forms, continue to exist. People still seek shortcuts to success, control, or relief from suffering, sometimes turning to forbidden practices. Islamic teachings emphasize that protection comes through sincere worship, righteous actions, and seeking knowledge. Reciting Quranic verses, performing prayers, giving charity, and maintaining good character are all spiritual tools to guard against evil influences. Moreover, Solomon's story encourages believers to seek knowledge and understanding. Education dispels ignorance, which is the fertile ground where fear and deception grow. By learning about the true nature of magic and its dangers, communities can protect themselves and support one another. The enduring power of divine guidance. Ultimately, Solomon's story is a testament to the enduring power of divine guidance. His reign was a manifestation of Allah's mercy, wisdom, and justice on earth. The miracles he performed and the powers he wielded were signs meant to inspire faith and obedience. For believers, this story serves as a reminder that Allah's guidance is always available, no matter the darkness surrounding us. Through prayer, patience, and devotion, the divine light can penetrate even the deepest shadows. Solomon's legacy also invites us to cultivate gratitude, recognizing the blessings we have, including faith itself, fosters humility and contentment. It encourages us to use our abilities, whatever they may be, for good, to serve others, and to uphold justice. Reflecting on the balance between power and faith. One of the most profound reflections from Solomon's story is the delicate balance between power and faith. Power without faith risks corruption and destruction, while faith without action can become passive. Solomon embodied the harmony of these forces. His divine gifts were powerful, yet they were always governed by deep spiritual principles. He used his abilities responsibly with wisdom and mercy, knowing that ultimate authority belongs to Allah alone. This balance is a guiding principle for all who seek to navigate life's challenges. Whether in leadership, personal growth, or community building, integrating faith with action leads to true success and fulfillment. Closing thoughts. A light that never fades as we conclude the story of how Prophet Solomon defeated magic with faith. We are left with a shining example of what it means to live a life anchored in divine trust and wisdom. Solomon's journey was not just about miracles or battles. It was about the enduring human quest for truth, justice, and connection with the Creator. His story encourages us to face our own trials with courage, humility, and faith. It reminds us that no matter how powerful the forces against us may seem, the light of Allah's guidance is stronger. By embracing this light, we join a lineage of believers who have overcome darkness throughout history. In a world filled with uncertainty and challenges, Solomon's legacy is a beacon of hope. It calls us to seek knowledge, act with justice, and nurture a heart devoted to the divine. Through these actions, we too can triumph over the illusions that seek to lead us astray and walk confidently in the path of faith.